Everyone, and welcome to the video. So as I'm talking, head down to the comments below and start typing in your principles of a great long run or a successful long run, but more importantly, how that approach to your long run has meant that the goals that you're aiming for, the race that you're training for, resulted in a hopefully success story, but how the two things correlate. You know, there's so much pressure put on the long run, especially when you're new to running. I'll talk about that in a moment. I want to hear from you. What sort of things have you found most beneficial? And I'm sure that as we all deep dive into comments, we can share the same thoughts, analysis, and begin a conversation. Alright, a few years ago, I started my running journey, and I didn't know anything about pace. I know nothing, and I'm new to it all. But what I am told is this: before your big race, before that first marathon, you must run 20 miles. And more importantly than that, you've got to run it well. You've got to run it at race pace, because without that, you won't go into marathon with the confidence you need to essentially hang on for the last 10k. So there I was, quite organically, just running, hanging on, hoping for the best. Some of my long runs were successful, others not so much. And I found that actually, mentally, there were times when I was shaken. I wasn't quite as secure in myself as I would have been had I approached a long run differently. So there's one approach, right? You're running what was for me more or less on the flat, and you're running with the goal of maintaining race pace. One approach to a long run, which I'm sure over time we've all done. Then skip forward 2 years, I'm training for an ultra, and I discovered this thing called elevation at the same time as discovering the principles of an easy run. Now, for me, it was totally new, which might sound a bit ludicrous, but I didn't really understand what both meant, if I'm honest with you. Whilst I was running for 2 years, the actual terminology and what that meant in reality still new to me, still learning. And I think over all of our journeys, you pick up on new things and you look back and you wonder why you didn't know it before. But there I am, training for my first ultra, and I realise, you know what, these long runs can be quite fun. I start running at a slower pace, at times often minute and a half slower than race pace. I'm choosing to run on hills, I'm walking, talking, I'm exploring, and at the end of that I'm coming home realising I've had an incredible time. On top of that, I'm recognising that my endurance, my speed when I call upon it, and my mental attitude towards running changes. I'm feeling a lot more confident, a lot more efficient, and a lot more prepared for the challenges ahead. So what I start to realise is this: me running at a slower pace but taking on a couple of 100 metres of elevation, or much more than that in feet, sounds a lot more impressive, actually benefits me far more than simply running on the flat at a faster pace. Muscular development is evident. I feel strong, I feel accomplished as a runner. I feel like I'm actually doing what this is supposed to be about: getting out there, enjoying the environment around me, having some time to myself, being mindful and not getting too wrapped up in the figures. Now, 1 in 5 of my runs, I do look for slightly less elevation. I do try and incorporate some speed work, but for me, I'm spending a lot more time out here enjoying what this world has to offer. And it gave me that little mental boost I needed, or big mental boost I needed, to tackle for my 50-mile race. Now, for that 50-miler, it was necessary for me to take on a good chunk of mileage in my long run. However, I approach it differently again. I actually focused on time on feet. So I knew that 30 miles on my feet was going to really benefit me. But I also realised that 6-7 hours out walking, strolling, eating was actually going to pay dividends far more so, because it is in those times that you become more fatigued and things start to go downhill. So if you're used to being out, being self-sufficient, you find that actually the benefits just come to you. Nutrition and hydration. Well, that's something that's very personal to everybody. I'm not here to recommend gels or drinks, but it's fair to say that perfecting the craft of taking on board hydration nutrition is a game changer. Quite simply, elite runners have lost race off the back of it, and those who are less accomplished have been able to take over their positions through just having a better management of taking on board the necessary requirements of hydration, nutrition, energy, and all the sources that you need to keep those legs ticking over, keep your mind fresh. So the long run is the time to practice it, to picnic on the move, and some days you will fail miserably, but other days it will just all fall into place. I'm very fortunate that through the years of me running, I've now got something that works very well for me, and I stick with it from every run. I don't really try anything new unless I'm forced to. I changed my gels during the 50-mile ultra training, which was a shame, but because everything else was secure, I was just adding in an element rather than starting it all from scratch. Here's another one for you: terrain or environment. If you're training for a mountain race, you need to be in the mountains, or at the very least find somewhere as hilly as you can. If you're training to run a race that's predominantly downhill, you need to find some opportunities to do that, and of course on the flat you need to get out there and try to experience that, because I know for me doing a Brighton Marathon, what really I struggled with was the monotonous streets of Brighton, these long sections. I was kind of used to at that time running along the river, and when you're faced with buildings either side, it just saps away some of the life from you. So you need to train to the surroundings that you're going to be spending the day in, because again that will give you that familiarity, that will help you to accomplish far easier. Now, I've never been a heart rate guy. I don't have the chest strap. I can't rely fully on my watch, but what I do know is when I'm tackling a hill like this, I'm huffing and puffing, I'm smiling, I know that my body's working. I also know when it's necessary to take a breather, give myself a chance to just get back in the zone. And I found that when I translate this to the flat, I've been able to quite easily, and I hasten to use that word, but quite easily find pace and maintain it. The endurance is there. We've got a lot of ease in this video, haven't we? Effort, endurance, elevation, easy. So, you know, I just feel like the evolution of my long runs have changed over time. It's actually made me a much better runner for running more slowly, taking on a lot more height at the expense sometimes of distance. You know, I might do 10k elevation versus the same amount of time on the flat would be maybe 16k, but whilst the muscles are different uses there, I feel like the greater gains are from the 10k effort than from the 16. The 16 serves its purpose, of course, but it doesn't offer me the same thing as that 10k up in the hills. Now, I'm not even a mountain runner, but if you can find some hills nearby to just try and tackle, also not always uphill, for me, but downhill as well. When I think about those people doing London Marathon this year, or Manchester, or any marathon in this country, I do wonder to myself, if I was really putting in a solid training block for a marathon, or even just using what I've got now, I wonder what time I could do. And it's something that really does fascinate me. But also, I owe so much of it to my new approach. So I'm wondering if any of you can sort of see similarities in your approaches along line to what I've just said. Now, you know, I'm not an expert, I'm still learning, but all I do know is when I see a hill like this here, I'm power walking, I'm jogging, I'm feeling the burn, and I know that I used to find it a struggle to walk up here. Now, I'm jogging, talking, and I'm just seeing that development is there, and I'm not getting the door at the end of it feeling utterly wasted. I'm getting the door feeling quite fulfilled with my achievements, and that's really driving me forward for the next session, is wanting to get back out there as soon as possible and do it all over again, instead of feeling like it's a real relief to finish a session. So with that said and done, I'm going to carry on with this run. I'd love to hear your thoughts, love to learn from you, love to be inspired by you, and I'll see you down in the comments.